Okay, so this is part two of the video, and part two focuses on the coding aspect of the lab. Okay, so the question says you should add remarks to the program as required in the earlier labs. So in lab one, we see that we added some remarks to the top of the program, uh, the class, the name of the programmer, and then the date the program was made. So I'll go back to my program, and then I can just double click on any of the controls. Since we are going to do the compute button first, I'll double click here. I just need the coding part of the form. So mm, over here on top of the sub procedure, sorry, on top of the program itself, I'll make a comment. The first one is the think the class or the name of the programmer. So name, I'll make it Apente Johnson. Make another comment with the class DIT2 and date programmed. So let's say today's date is 0904 2026. So I'm done with that. Let me put a space here. Okay, so I have that one done. I've added the remarks, but as we continue to code, the sub procedures should also be given remarks. In the previous labs, we gave remarks to the sub procedures too. So since we are going to, according to the remarks in the earlier labs, we have to also give the remarks to the sub procedures. Okay, so the next one says we must turn option strict on. So this thing has a function, but I cannot explain the function in this particular assignment, or else I'll talk about so many things. So let's finish with the assignment. When we get our free time, we can just discuss, and then I'll explain more on the option strict on. So what I like to do is to finish with the basic code before I turn on the option strict on. Since this is just a small code, I just would like to finish before I turn the option strict on. But if you want to do it before, this is how to do it. Come back to the code. And right before the program itself, you type option and then strict, and then you turn it on. So this is how to turn it on, but I like to do it when I'm done. So I'll clear it before. So the next thing that we are moving on to is to do the code for the compute button. It says that the data is entered in 5 input text box controls within the group box controls, and then the compute button is clicked. So when the data is entered and the compute button is clicked, what should happen? It says we should use a try catch block to catch any exception that may occur during those associated with data entry. So if there is a mistake or a data entry error, there should be an exception thrown onto the screen. So if it says that we should display a message box like the one shown below. So if I go to the next one, there is the message box. So it has this title, it has this icon, it has this message, and then it has this OK button. So we are going to design a message box that looks like this when that error happens, when there is a data entry error. Okay, so I'll move back to my code. The question says we should use a try catch block. So that is what I'm going to do. So I'll do a try. So there's my try catch block. And I'm going to catch the exception first before I code whatever that's here. So it says we should show a message box. So I'll bring on the message box. And then we are showing that message box. So the question, let's move on to the display. Let's move on to the question. The question says that we should show this message: error in retail price, wholesale cost, or quantity. So this is the message that we are supposed to display. So inside this, you are first going to type the message. So I put the message in inverted commas or quotation marks. So the message was error in retail price, comma, wholesale cost, or quantity. So this is the message that we are supposed to show. So the message comes first. The message that we are supposed to show comes first. Let's move on to the parts of this. So this is the message. The next thing we are supposed to do is what shows at the title bar over here. So the words data error shows at the title bar. So I'll go back to my program. After the comma, I bring my inverted commas, and then the title bar shows data error. So you should follow in that order. The first thing is the message itself. The next thing is the message that shows at the title bar. So the next one is this particular button over here. What button should be here? So the button over here is an OK button. So that is the button over there. So I bring message box buttons, and then dot. What button? It is an OK button. So I select OK. So I bring comma. The next thing, let's look at the design, is this icon. So what icon is that? So is this a warning icon? Is this so let's look at the icons and select which one. So the next thing is a message box icon. So message box icon dot. So it is what? It is an error. So you select error. So save it. So if there is an error, a data entry error in this compute button code, it will throw this message box. Now let's implement one and see. For example, if you come into the try block and we declare quantity. So let's do finish with the coding. When we code and then we run the program, we display that particular error and see what we get. So since the program is going to ask for, let's look at so we have tackled the message box. We have tackled the message box. Let's move on to what happens here. So the gross profit is computed by multiplying the quantity times difference between the price less the cost of the part. So we have to declare a variable for gross profit. You have to declare a variable for quantity, and then you have to also declare, let's look at the picture. You are declaring a variable for retail price to wholesale cost, quantity, gross profit, storage charges, and then net profit. So all these should have variables to store the values. So first declare quantity, and then this quantity is declared. Since we don't have 1.2 3.5 quantity, we are declaring it as an integer. So we declare quantity as an integer, we declare wholesale price, or let's start with retail. So retail price as a decimal, because it's money. We can have 6.50 pesos. That's why we're declaring at a decimal. You can also declare wholesale cost as a decimal. Now, so note here, because all of these are decimals, we can just decide to bring a comma here and add wholesale price, because they have the same wholesale cost, because they have the same data type. So I can clear this one. So I have retail price, wholesale cost, they are all decimals because they are going to be money. So there are other things that can also be decimals. So I'll bring comma, gross profit. So gross profit can also be a decimal. Another decimal we can have is the storage charges. So all the monies can be decimals. Storage charges. And then the next one is net profit. Net profit can also be a decimal. So the last declaration I'm going to make is the rate for the storage charges. And since if you look at the question over here, let's skip to this side. See that the storage charges are charged at 5% of the gross profit. So we have a fixed storage charge rate that is going to be used for the calculation. So 5% is the same as 0.05. So I'll convert it to 0.05 as the rate. So storage charge rate as single, and the value given to it is 0.05. So I'm done with the declarations. So when he was teaching in class, he added this comment. So this part is a declaration of variables and constants. You can change the English to anything that you want, but just that I'm picking this. So this part is for the declaration of the variables and then the constants. So the next part will be for passing and assigning values. So we are passing and assigning values. So we have 4 steps. We have to declare, then we pass and assign. So what are we passing? When we say we are passing, what does it mean? We are converting one data from one data type to another data type. So that is what we call passing. So when you look at the forms, when you type anything here, it is the text property that is changed. So the value over here, when the user types it, is a text. We have to first convert it to, so the first part is for the, for this one. So when the user types here, the person is typing for the retail price. The retail price is a decimal. But when the user types the price, it is in the form of a text. So we have to convert the text to decimal before we assign it to that particular variable. So when the user types the wholesale price, you have to first convert it to a decimal. When the user types inside here, you have to first convert the text to an integer before we assign it to the variable. So that's the meaning of the passing and assigning. So we have to pass it before we assign. So the quantity, so the quantity variable over here, so the quantity of variable over here is equal to, so we have to pass it. The quantity is an integer, so we are changing the text, we are passing it to an integer. When the user types in here, it's supposed to be changed into an integer. That is why we are using integer over here. So integer dot pass. And I'll bring a bracket. The next thing is, what are we passing? So I come to the design. It is the data over here that we are changing to a decimal. So whatever the user types here, sorry, we are changing to an integer. Whatever the user types here, that is what we are changing into an integer. And what the user types here is the text property of this particular text box. This text box is called quantity text box. So the text property of this text box is what we are going to pass, is what we are going to change. So I'll come to my program. So it is the quantity text box. We are changing the text property of that particular quantity text box. So the meaning of this code is, we are changing the text property of the quantity text box into an integer before we assign it to this particular variable. So we do the same thing for the retail price, the wholesale cost, whatever. So the retail price. So retail price is equal to, since we declare the retail price as a decimal, we have to pass it into a decimal. So we use decimal. So decimal dot pass and we are passing the retail price text box dot text. We are passing the text value of the retail price text box. So we do the same for the wholesale cost. So wholesale cost is also going to be decimal dot pass, and we are passing the wholesale cost so we are passing the text property of the wholesale cost text box. So the last one, which one is the user going to type again? So the user will type the retail price, the wholesale cost, and then the quantity. So we are done with the 3. We have finished passing the 3. Okay, so let's move on to the question. So the question says that gross profit is computed by multiplying the quantity times the difference between the price less the cost of the part. So we are going to subtract the retail price we are going to subtract the wholesale cost from the retail price and multiply it by the quantity. So that is what we are going to do. You are subtracting the wholesale cost from the retail price and then multiplying by the quantity to get gross profit. So come back to my code and add another comment. The comment is performing calculations. So we perform the calculations over here. So the first one is the gross profit. How do we get the gross profit? The gross profit, we are multiplying the quantity. So the quantity is multiplied by the retail price. So we have a variable for the retail price. So retail price minus the wholesale cost. So the gross profit is the quantity multiplied by the retail price minus what? The wholesale cost. Okay, so let's tackle the next thing. So the next thing to do from the question is the storage charges is charge 5% of the gross profit. So we are going to do for the storage charge, which is 5% of the gross profit. So we have already declared the storage charge. Did we declare for the storage? Yes, this is the storage charges. So the storage charges is equal to 5%. Now we have stored this 5% as a constant here. So the 5% has been converted to 0.5 and assigned to this particular variable. So I'm going to say that storage charge rate is multiplying, so 5% of what? Of the gross profit. So this is the 5% stored inside this particular variable. So 5% of times the gross profit. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to take care of is the net profit. So the net profit is the gross profit less the storage charges. So we are subtracting the storage charges from the gross profit. So the net profit is equal to the gross profit minus the storage charges. Says use the parse, convert, and round methods as appropriate within the program. We'll talk about that soon. Okay. Format output display to text box controls as shown in the figure below. So when you look at the figure, you see that the output displays, this one displays the gross profit, this one displays the storage charges, and then this text box also displays the net profit. Okay, so that is what we are going to tackle. But for now, let's try something and see. Let's try and run it. Okay, so everything is working perfectly. Let's leave the retail price blank, wholesale cost, or let's try and type, let's say, ABC or something, because we declared this one as a decimal and we are typing something that is not a decimal. Let's click on the compute button and see what happens. Click on the compute button and this message box pops up. So you see that the title is data error. We have this icon here, we have this message here, and then we have the OK button. So that is the message box that we were trying to say. And but if we type everything correctly, this is 34, 43, 23, and hit on the compute button. Since you have not finished with the compute button, nothing is happening. And then there's no error throwing because there is no data entry error. But the moment I change this one to this, then there's a data entry error. So it brings this message box. If I change it back, let's try and see if when we add 2.3 and hit on this, it's also throwing the data error because we declare this one as an integer, not a decimal. So when there is an error in the data entry, it throws that particular message box. We end for now and take the rest of the coding in part 3.